In today's video, we're checking out a camera that came out in 2017. This is the Panasonic LUMIX G9. I'm mostly a video shooter, so we're going to talk about the video features and capabilities of this camera, and we're also going to compare it up against my Panasonic LUMIX GH6, which came out in 2022. If you're unfamiliar with the Panasonic G9, it was a photo first camera, and through some really great firmware upgrades, it became an almost complete hybrid camera. So whether you're shooting video or photos, you're going to get excellent results. The G9 has almost a cult-like following, and after getting my hands on it very late in the game, I can tell you that it's been an absolute pleasure to use. It's definitely one of the best value cameras on the market as of 2023, at least in Australia, coming in at under $1,000, which is a really great deal for what this camera packs in under the hood. While this won't be a heavy specification video, what it will be is some practical examples about how a camera, being the G9 from 2017, holds its own up against a far newer camera, the likes of the GH6, and you can make your mind up whether or not you can see a massive difference in the image quality. Now, if you're already familiar with my channel, yes, this is a completely different studio, in a different room, in a different house. I moved and everything is all over the place, but I wanted to get some more content out on the Geeky Nerdy Techie YouTube channel because I haven't been posting much because of this move. So hang in there, there'll be more stuff coming up. Just know that this temporary space here won't be the permanent studio. I can do much better than this, and I will once I clear out all the boxes. When it comes to ergonomics, one of the things that everybody raves about is how comfortable the grip is on the G9. And after getting my hands on it, I can absolutely tell you that it is very comfortable to use. So if you're like me and you like to hold the camera in your hand for shooting video for extended periods of time, you're not going to get any grief out of the G9. It's very comfortable. It's very reminiscent of the Panasonic S5, which came out later, or even some of the Olympus cameras. So it has a more triangular and longer grip when you compare it up against the likes of the Panasonic GH5 Mark II. One of the things that I can appreciate is the button and dial layout on the G9. Everything is where it should be. I felt right at home, having never used this camera at all. The only small point of difference is that the power button is right near the shutter, which is the only camera from the range that I've used personally that has this feature. Secondly, I love the fact that the G9 has a top LCD screen so you can see all of your settings. This is really handy, and it's something that I've never used until using the G9, and it's a massive benefit for those who want to see their settings without having to always open the selfie screen or to put the camera up to your eye. We get a fully articulating touchscreen that's also nice and easy to see on a bright sunny day. It makes it easy for vlogging or setting up a shot like this on a tripod, whether you're indoors or out. We also get a full-size HDMI port, which means if you plan on going out into an A10 Mini Pro and you need 4 cameras that all match, this is a really cost-effective way of doing it. Now, the G9 only weighs 658 grams, which is quite a bit lighter than the GH6. So if you're looking for that smaller form factor and portability for photos and video, the G9 is a really great option. Let's jump into some of these comparisons now, starting with an autofocus comparison, just walking towards the camera. Now, I'll leave all of the settings and information on screen. This will be the G9 versus the GH6, and then we'll talk about some of the results. Looking back at this test, it's a no-brainer that the new camera has the edge when it came to autofocus performance, but it's still pretty close. Now, DFD isn't perfect, and if you want the best in autofocus, the Panasonic S5 Mark II, as of right now, as shooting this, is still the way to go. But the GH6 does have an edge, and what I did notice was there wasn't as much flickering and pulsing in the trees when I got closer to the camera like I saw on the G9. But the G9 for DFD autofocus is still very capable. I could probably fine-tune the settings a little bit more, but I wanted to keep everything set to default. Autofocus tests aside, it was just amazing how well the G9 held up against the GH6 when it came to its overall image quality and color science. Using the natural picture profile on both cameras, I was easily able to get very comparable and interchangeable results. So if you're looking for a great B cam to your GH6, the G9 would still be the way to go. Let's take a quick look at the in-body image stabilization or IBIS system in the G9, and we'll see how it compares up against the GH6. As you can see, the IBIS system in this camera is fantastic, and it still holds its own in 2023, and it's still far beyond what Sony are putting in their cameras as of right now. And now you're looking at the Panasonic GH6 in the Cine D picture profile. Now there is a difference in the color science, but the IBIS is performing beautifully and might be slightly more stable on the GH6, but at the end of the day, you can get great results out of both, and I'll call this a tie, especially when doing any type of vlogging. One of the lenses I asked to borrow for this particular test from Panasonic was the 14-140 f3.5 to 5.6 zoom lens. So I'm zoomed in all the way at 140 millimeters, which is that 280 millimeter full frame equivalent. This is all done handheld, and we're checking out the IS boost mode, which the G9 has, which is fantastic. Let's take a look. If you're unfamiliar with IS boost mode, this mode allows you to get an almost tripod looking shot when shooting handheld. And again, this is the G9 at 140 millimeters. And this is the GH6 at 140 millimeters with exactly the same lens and setup. As you can see, it's slightly smoother and it has a few less micro shakes than the G9, but it's very close. And this isn't anything that you couldn't just fix with a little bit of warp stabilization in post-production. While the image quality, color science, and in-body image stabilization are all fantastic on the G9, there's just a couple of limitations if you plan on using this as your primary recording camera. Now, in a live streaming situation, most of the time you won't be recording, you'll just be feeding it through a switcher or whatever the case may be out to an audience, and this won't apply to you. But if you plan on shooting long-form content, just know you do get a 10-minute limit when shooting 4K at 60 frames per second, or 50 if you're in the PAL region like this guy right here. There's also a 30-minute limit when shooting 24, 25, or 30 frames per second. So just keep that in mind. That might be a deal breaker for long form interviews. This is where cameras like the GH5 Mark II and the GH6 definitely have the advantage. Where I think the G9 really shines is its value for money, considering what kind of video performance you get back. And if the recording limitations are deal breakers for you, you're going to be in for an absolute treat. Now, if you plan on buying the G9 for photography or hybrid shooting where you'll be doing both video and photography, I'm gonna link you over to Todd Bannor's YouTube channel. Todd's a professional photographer out of Illinois in the US. We collaborated on my channel a little while back, and his work is simply amazing, and he knows the camera back to front. It's his primary camera for all of his pro work. Do yourself a favor and check out his video or channel linked up here or down in the description box below. All right, let's wrap this video up. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the Panasonic G9, starting with a few of the trade-offs. So the recording limits might be a trade-off if you plan on buying this solely for video work and you need to record long-form content. Usually when I'm doing videos like this, I let the camera run or I break it up into sections, and those sections might be longer than the recording limitations on the G9, so just keep that in mind. Secondly, the autofocus system, while it's improved over the original GH5 and you can definitely make it work, it's nowhere near as good as the S5 Mark II or S5 Mark IIX. So if you need the best in autofocus, I would opt to go for that particular camera. But odds are, if you're looking at this video, you're wondering whether or not you can make it work. And I think once you understand how the camera works, you'll get great results out of it. For a shot like this, for example, if I was shooting with the G9, I would lock it off onto manual focus, touch on my face on screen because the camera's right there, and it would stay here. No matter what I do, it's not going to lose focus. So manual focus is great. Don't be afraid to give it a shot. And lastly, the only other small compromise is we don't get the same video tools you'd find in the GH5 or GH5 Mark II, for example, or the GH6. So there's always those compromises. If you want anamorphic D-squeeze in camera and you want to start to shoot manual focus, you'll need to get a more video-centric camera. But overall, I think the G9 is a fantastic buy. And under $1,000 here in Australia, you can barely buy any other cameras unless they're used and really old. So I would say the G9 still represents great value for money, and you can still make it work in a range of different situations. Thanks for watching. My name's Shane. Let us know what you think of the Panasonic G9, and I will catch you soon. See ya.